Dear listener, hello. It's been the week of Kyle and Jackie O. It's the biggest radio news story in the world. So while we do talk about other things on this podcast, this week I can tell by the amount of comments and media coverage and downloads and everything going on that you do want to hear a little bit more about this. So if you'd like, I thought I'd take you back about 12 months' time to a time that I was in Athens at Radio Days Europe, and I was sitting in the audience and I was listening to radio consultant Simo, John Simmons, talking to Jackie about her book, The Whole Truth. But if you have a listen to this interview and then think about what's happened in the last week or so, I think you'll hear the seeds being sown when John introduces her on stage and has a chat to her. Take a listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to bring Jackie O from Sydney, Australia, and KIIS FM.
Hey. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about you.
Okay.
Because we've got the book. I've read the book. But first, we should talk about Kyle. How is he? Because he's not been well. He's got a brain aneurysm, which sounds really serious. Is he okay?
He is okay. He recently got diagnosed with the brain aneurysm after having a few scans, and ultimately they decided it was riskier to operate, and so they're just going to monitor it at this point. But he's a bit of a mess at the moment. I've got to say, he's got a heart aneurysm. He's got, I don't know, he had a colonoscopy 2 days ago, and there's a lot of things going on with Kyle.
I don't think the colonoscopy's got anything to do with a brain aneurysm.
Definitely doesn't, but it's everywhere at the moment for him. But he's okay. He'll be all right.
Well, I was listening to the show yesterday. Well, it was this morning.
It was this morning, but we were doing it last night.
We were doing it
last
night at
midnight.
The Real FM studios here in Athens. And he sounded fine.
Yeah, he's good. Like, he pushes through, you know. We've been on air for decades now, and we all have our ups and downs, health issues come and go. And, you know, I think he's going to be okay. We just need him to look after himself a bit better. He's got some bad habits.
Well, we're going to talk about the whole truth.
Yeah.
Let's go way back to the beginning. You started on radio on what was called in Australia then the Hot 30, which was the mid-evening show.
Yes, so that was a countdown show playing the hits back in the days where there was no Spotify and you couldn't stream your favourite songs, and so those shows were really popular back then, as we all know, and so I started doing that from 7 till 10 p.m.
When did you first start working with Kyle?
I think it was maybe at the end of 1999, just clicking over into the year 2000, we started working together.
And in the book you say that the first show was a disaster.
It was, yes. So we had been trialling so many people because I had worked with an announcer, Ugly Phil, who was really popular at the time, and he left, and then we were looking for a replacement, and we were just trying many different people, and I think the big boss at the time, Jeff Ellis, was just getting so sick of not making a decision that he brought in this guy from Brisbane, and he said we're just going to put him on tonight on air, and whatever happens, happens. And he wasn't so great. He was nervous. I mean, you know, he was sort of thrown into the fire at that point. But night number one, he didn't know anything about pop music. He mucked everything up. He hung up on Victoria Beckham 3 times. We never got her back. And it was just, that was it. I was like, this is never going to work. What are they doing? And then, I don't know, the next night he came back, and I swear he must have been cramming or something, because he knew everything and he just started nailing it. And so thankfully they gave him a bit more of a chance, and
At what point did you realise that this had legs, that this was going to work?
That's a good question. It took about maybe a year to get there, I think, easily. You know, it was doing well, but I don't think Kyle and I really kind of got our chemistry going until we went away on a junket to Spain, and that would have been maybe 6 to 8 months in. And on that trip, we really kind of, it was a tricky trip. It wasn't a fun one. We were met with loads of challenges, and I think through that we bonded, and then that's kind of when it really started to kick off.
Because we talked in the programming summit that Nick was hosting yesterday about chemistry.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that trip was your chemistry test.
It was, yes. And I don't think we'd spent enough time together outside of doing the show hours. And I think that's so important that you do create kind of those memories and try to sort of get that bond going, because that's what gets the chemistry in time. Chemistry is... It doesn't come necessarily immediately, especially in radio. I think it's something you have to work at. And I think through time, our chemistry has gotten better and better. And now we just know each other so well. I know he knows what to say to, for me to be able to deliver a line and vice versa. We kind of just are 2 steps ahead of each other. But I think that, I would say over the decades, it's gotten better and better. But I think these days they put radio shows together and they just expect it to be amazing, but it just really doesn't work like that, Those things do. You need to allow it to develop and to breathe.
Do you think I'm going to talk about Frenzal Rom?
Oh my God, yes.
But which was a negative experience for you.
Yeah, it really was traumatic.
But it sort of turned into a positive experience for the show because Kyle took exception to how they treated you.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't know the story, I was asked to introduce, God knows why I was asked to do this, but to fly to the Northern Territory, there was some sort of festival happening, and I was supposed to just introduce this band on stage. And they were like, pretty heavy rock band, and they came out on stage, and they were like, why the fuck is Jackie O here? And I was mortified, and I went back, and I remember telling Kyle, I was like, damn, this band, they said this on stage. Kyle went on air and tore them one, right? And he really ripped them to shreds, and so begun this huge feud with the audience. Because Triple J is sort of like Radio 1, let's say. Frenzal Rom hosted a breakfast show on Triple J, I think, at the time. And so there was this huge war that kind of broke out between their listeners and ours. Actually, our listeners didn't go to war. It was just the other side going to war with us. And so it was pretty horrific, the trolling, and it was my first experience with that. I was pretty young too. And so to just be hit with, messages and just the trolling, it felt endless. And when it happens to you for the first time, you never forget it because it feels like your world is ending. It's pretty hard. And then I think I always see that as a bit of a blessing in disguise in some way because it really toughened me up. And the next time it happened, which invariably with our kind of show, it does bring about some... Well, people talk about it. You either love or hate it. And so there's always going to be moments where people are against you because of certain things you may have done on air. And so the next time it happened, it wasn't quite so difficult. And yeah, it kind of, now it's water off a duck's back.
Well, feuds on the show seem to be an important part of the show now.
Well, I don't want it to be that way. But yeah, Kyle likes to have a feud going. Which makes it entertaining, I guess.
Has he got a feud going at the moment?
Yes, he does, actually. There is a comedian, Dave Hughes, who was on the breakfast show on Today FM, so our old station that we left. And they recently sort of got replaced. And Dave came out in the press and said, I have no sympathy for Kyle and his brain aneurysm. He, gets no empathy from me type of thing. And so just last night when we were doing the show... it was on, as you can imagine.
I was listening. He went off on one.
He did.
Yeah. Let's get back to you and the Hot 30, and you're offered breakfast.
Yeah.
And you weren't sure about breakfast. Do you not like getting up early?
No, it wasn't that. It was we'd gone from the Hot 30 to do drive, and it was so those drive hours are so great, but it wasn't really the hours. To me, it was, I'd seen in breakfast radio how if you don't succeed, that's it. You're done. You don't get a second chance. So I was worried about that, you know. I knew we had a great show. We were on the drive slot. We were doing well. Let's just stay here. Why do we have to risk it? That was my concern. And Kyle's like a roll the dice kind of person, you know, and he has such belief in anything that we do. So he was like, no, we're going to be great. It's going to work. And so I was just fearful of like my career being over if it didn't.
You did go on breakfast. You quickly went to number one. But you say getting to number one was the easy bit. Staying at number one, that's the hard bit.
It is, yeah, because when you're not at number one, it's fun. You've got the drive and the competitiveness, and you're just so eager to win. And it's sort of fun, that part. That's my favorite part, is climbing. And then when you're there, you have to figure out how do you, especially with a show like ours, which can be a bit shocking at times, you have to be careful that you don't go too far and lose your way, which we did, by the way. We definitely did at times. But yeah, keeping it at number one can be hard because it's really easy to become complacent, especially when you've been number one for, say, 3 or 4 years, you know, and you just cruise control. You never want to get to that. And that's always been a big thing for me, is never get complacent. Never just assume your audience is locked in. They're loyal, they are, but it only takes one new show to come along that's amazing, and then they go, oh, no, these guys are old hat. They're stale. I'm listening to them. And you never know when that new show will come along. I mean, you know, there may not be anything going on right now, but you just never know when they'll pop up. And so I just never want to be that show that has become stale and is doing the same thing and is predictable.
Well, you said the show can be shocking, and probably one of the most significant shocking things that happened was the lie detector.
Yeah.
With a 14-year-old girl.
Yes.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about how that all came about?
Yeah, so we had this lie detector and we used it for segments where people might put their partner on there if they're suspecting them of cheating. It was very Jerry Springer. And it was fine in terms of the lead up to that moment. It was okay because they were pretty harmless topics that were happening, and they were amongst adults. And then one day, a mum wanted to know if her daughter was doing drugs, and she came in with her 14-year-old daughter, which, you know, obviously you look back on now and go, why? Why would we even do that to begin with? But it went a bit rogue, and then she said that because the mum suddenly asked, have you had sex? And we didn't know that was even going to be a question. And that's when the 14-year-old girl said that she was raped, and it was just this sort of moment where, you know, everyone was shocked, and it was live, and we didn't have a censor in those days. There was nothing you could do except end the segment, which we did, but it was just too late.
I believe Kyle wasn't in the studio.
No.
So was that part of why it went pear-shaped?
Yeah, I think it was hard for him to get a sense or read the room because I think he was in New Zealand, actually. For some reason, I think he might have been on his honeymoon. And so, yeah, he didn't get a feel for how that energy felt. And so he didn't end it. He followed it up with another question, which appeared very insensitive. And so I think that was kind of also added to the how terrible that segment was ultimately. And so, yeah, that was pretty much our first scandal, which was a big one. And, you know, we had press hounding us for weeks, you know, and advertisers pulling out, rightly so.
It was huge. I mean, it was. You know, it was all over the British press as well.
Yes, yes.
So it was everywhere. And I'm just going to read out a quote from you from the book. During this period, And you say, even as these events played out, our ratings continued to grow. It was odd to be experiencing professional growth at the detriment of my own morals and values. So you were obviously in a state of turmoil about this as well.
I mean, the thing is that obviously that was never planned, that particular moment. And so the unfortunate thing is that when those things happen, they're usually because it's something not so great, but the ratings do go up. And that is not intentional. And I think when things happened after that, there are a couple of other things that came up, and then it started to become people saying they're doing it deliberately, which I can assure you we definitely didn't. But when you see the ratings go up, it is, I guess it's natural that people want to listen in more. But yeah, it's an odd one because that doesn't sit right with me at all. And we really went through a period then where that's where we lost our way. And then we were just doing pretty ugly kind of segments, to be honest.
Was that a gear change for you about your morals and values? Because consequently, further on from that, you've really gone quite X-rated at certain times.
Yeah. I mean, it depends. There are certain things. The show is quite racy. We've pulled back a bit these days. When it goes too far in terms of being X-rated, I'm uncomfortable with that. I am. But Kyle loves his, he loves to get filthy, but it's not so bad these days. But I don't love it being super smutty. No.
You mentioned about the censor. You're the only show that I know that has a censor that works on the show while it's live.
Yeah.
And you're 30 seconds in delay.
Yes.
All the time.
All the time.
And the censor has to sit there and bleep things.
Yeah.
That's a high-pressure job.
Oh, yeah, it is. I don't know how she does it because she's constantly thinking, is this a code breach or is this going to get us in trouble with the press? There's a million things going through her mind, and it's not like it's the odd thing that comes up once the show. It's happening all the time where she has to make a judgment call on it. There's a lot of pressure on her.
Well, she was working overtime last night.
Yeah, she was. Did you hear? You were listening to see, we don't know when we're getting beeped when we're on air, and it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, well, I was listening to...
Were there many beeps last night?
You were being bleeped a lot.
Were we?
Yeah. And there's one point where Kyle said she's only supposed to bleep the F word and the C word.
Okay, I'll have to listen back to that.
So I thought, you must be using the F word and the C word a lot.
No, we weren't. There's a Eurovision entry. Yeah, that's why I reckon we were getting beeped. We were saying the name of the song, which sounds like the C word, obviously.
Yeah, if you don't know, it's the Maltese Eurovision Song Contest entry.
Yeah.
I'll let you say what it's called.
Oh, thanks for that, John. Put me in it. It's called Can't.
Can't.
And the song, the lyrics are serving can't. Yeah. And it doesn't sound like can't, let me tell you.
Not when they're singing it,
No.
All right. What's the traffic light system? Do you have a traffic light system where...
Okay, with the sensor, we have, it's like it's a traffic light kind of stick in the studio, and if it's flashing orange, then that's kind of our warning that we might get beeped soon if you keep going down this path. So it's like a warning light. Green is when we have been beeped, although that's not always accurate because there's two ways to beep the show. You can go back in time and beep it, or you can beep it live. And I think only when she gets it live do we see the green flash. And then there's the red. And the red is you've just gone so far, it's beyond repair. You can't even beep what we've just said, so it gets dumped completely. And the audience will hear a pre-recorded message that says the following program has been dumped. Someone's getting in trouble for saying something they shouldn't have.
You see, I would have thought when it goes amber, that's just going to fire up Kyle to try and make it go red.
It does. No, he says, stop flashing the light. I'm not saying anything bad. So, yes, it's quite antagonistic, that orange one.
How often is the whole 30 seconds used on the dump? Do you know?
Oh, how often do we dump, you mean? Or...
Well, the whole 30 seconds.
Yep.
Last night she seemed to be dumping like 2 or 3 seconds at a time.
Well, the
Or bleeping it.
Yeah, so she's bleeping. I don't know. It depends what's being said.
Right.
Sometimes it can be little, and sometimes it can be 3 seconds. But yeah, dumping is just a complete wipe of the last 30 seconds, and yeah, then we get to live.
Let's get off this. Let's talk more about how your career progressed. So you're flying high. You're at Today FM. Everything's pretty hunky-dory.
Yep.
You're number one. And then, I think, from the way I read it, Kyle decides that it's not okay at Today FM and you're going to go across the road. And you're going to go to Mix, but you're going to go to Mix and change it to KIIS.
Yes.
Is that what happened? Did Kyle just decide this and didn't consult with you?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I'll never forget that day. I had just purchased a house, and it was I'd spent quite a lot of money. I had a big mortgage. I just built this house, and it was Halloween, and my daughter was young. It was her first Halloween, and I had decorated the new house with everything and was so excited. We were getting ready for the kids to start knocking on the door. And about half an hour before that, Kyle calls me to say, Dal, I've just let Today FM know we're not coming back this year. And he goes, between you and me, we're going to go to Mix. But I've already let them know. And I was like, what? I just was in shock. And I was like, Kyle, you can't do... I've just got a mortgage. He goes, don't worry, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And then all the kids start knocking on the door and I'm having to give out candy while trying to process what just happened. Kyle likes to... in the afternoon, John, what Kyle does is, and I'm not telling you anything out of school because he'll be the first to admit it, but he likes to smoke weed in the afternoon, and then he does these crazy things always on the weed. And he comes up with these ideas, and that's when he came up with the idea, you know what, I'm just going to go to Mix and we'll turn it into KIIS and we'll create our own station and we'll go somewhere where they appreciate us. And that was that.
And he was stoned.
Yeah. Yes. Whenever Kyle calls me in the afternoon, I go, I'm not taking that call. I'm going to be on the phone for an hour and a half because he loves to have a chat.
I obviously work with a lot of morning shows. I would have thought if one of the hosts did that to the other host, that would have been it. Not many would have survived that. But you just seem to be able to take it in your stride.
Yeah, look, I mean, I was not happy. I really wasn't. But I was willing to hear it out because Kyle has done this so many times, things like that, you know. And every time he's done it, it has worked out. So I did like the idea. I didn't love what was happening at Today FM. Today FM weren't really coming to the table with anything, and they were delaying and stalling, and we really didn't know where we stood. So it wasn't like, you know, everything was hunky-dory there. There was a part of me that thought, yeah, this is probably a smart move if we can pull it off. But there was just so much going through my head in that one phone call, you know.
Well, it did turn out to be the best thing that
did,
you ever did.
This is why I have to, I have faith in Kyle.
Tell us about the last show on Today FM.
Oh, God, yeah. I'd rather not because it's like I felt so bad with that because we had worked there for many years and, you know, they were so good to us for a long time. It didn't work out in the end. But... they thought we were obviously retiring. We didn't say where we were going because, you know, they'd take us off air for a while and they'd put on a new show and we didn't want to give them that opportunity. So we just said, that's it, we're finished with radio. And so they put on this huge spread and really kind of made a big fanfare about it, and all staff came to watch the last break. And there were about 250 people outside our studio, which is a big fishbowl, and they were all cheering and applauding. And we came out and everyone's congratulating us. And I just knew that in 15 minutes, Mix are going to make the announcement that we're coming over. And Kyle just said to everyone, I'm just going to the bathroom, I'll be back. And of course he was gone. Yeah. And I went down with him to have a cigarette. And I said to him, I just can't. Like, I can't leave like this. I've got to go and say goodbye. And he said, fucking good luck with that. And I thought, nah, I can't. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to go up there quickly and say goodbye and get out, hopefully, before this happens. And I walk back up and I just see everyone, all the programming department at this sort of central island desk that they all kind of shared, and all of them are like, they've got their headphones on, they're hearing, they've been text something, and they're listening to this announcement, which I think went for like 5 minutes. It was this huge, epic kind of announcement. And I just sort of thought, oh, what do I do now? And so I left, and they started ripping down our posters instantly. It was not pretty, and it was horrible. And I don't love that. I really don't. But far out. We didn't really have a choice.
Yeah. Well, once again, I think Kyle's instincts were right.
His were right, you know. Yeah, I should have followed suit there.
The first ratings book at KIIS, as it was now called.
Yeah.
Can we just put the record straight with this as well? It was Kyle's idea to change the name of the station from Mix to KIIS.
Yep.
Right.
That was the deal breaker for him, because Mix had just not done anything for so long, and it had a little bit of stigma attached to it as being kind of old and daggy, and he just did not want to be seen as, oh, he had to go to Mix, you know. And so for him, he needed it to be rebranded into something new and fresh and be the new station that everyone was going to be talking about. So that was absolutely a deal breaker.
So that first ratings book,
yeah,
which everyone was waiting to see what happened.
Yeah. It was nerve-wracking because we had left Today FM and there was just such fierce rivalry now. I mean, it was on. They were spending so much money on a show that could go up against us. And, you know, Mel B was on there, and we had Sophie Monk, who was, you know, she's a big star in Australia, and two other announcers, Jules and Merrick, and they were putting everything into it. And their kind of imaging and everything was great. It was looking really good, and I was worried, you know, I really was, because they were throwing everything at it. And there was just so much bad blood at this point that both sides wanted so desperately to win. And we had the media, because it happened at the end of the year, we had a pretty long run before that survey came out. So we had the whole Christmas break, which in Australia we get like 6 weeks off, and then we returned, and then we had, you know, another month and a half to wait for the ratings. So in that period we had the press just constantly writing about it every day, you know. It was such a big deal. And every commentator was weighing in on whether we would do this or not, whether people would move with us or just stay put. And a lot was saying, you know, it wouldn't work. And so we really, like, you got, your ego was on the line, you know. I can't sort of put it any other way. It was ego. And you just thought, if this doesn't work and no one comes over, we're going to really have egg on our face, and they're going to be laughing. And so it was a big build up to that day. And I just remember driving into work and feeling so anxious and nervous and having no clue what was going to happen. Because it really hadn't been done before, you know, on FM radio. It had with AM, but not with FM. And so when the ratings came on, we were still on air. I think it was around 9:20. And I just saw, like, the CEO and our executive producer and just a long line of staff all coming in. And they opened the door, and my executive producer just went like this. And I just was like, I honestly did not think we would go number one. I just wanted it to increase enough where we didn't look like idiots. But to go from, because Mix was right down the bottom, right down, it was last, and it literally just went like that. Every single audience member flicked the switch. And it was a great day. I can't lie, it really was.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the only two worst to first stories in radio history. There's Z100 and there's Kyle and Jackie O.
Oh, there you go, yeah.
It was historic.
Yeah, it really was. It was a big moment, like one of the highlights for sure.
So the show's evolved organically.
Yeah. Yes.
I hinted it earlier on, it gets quite X-rated at certain points.
Mm-hmm. How X-rated did you find it last night?
Pardon me?
How X-rated did you find it when you were listening last night? Was it that bad?
Yeah, it was okay. But I've heard some episodes when and it's been, oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. I agree. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, there are times when it gets pretty X-rated. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you seem to have gone through a phase of late. Is that because of the launch into Melbourne and you've kind of pulled back?
I reckon that what happened was we launched into Melbourne, and I think Kyle pushed the envelope even further, and it was probably a little out of whack with where we usually are. And I would say it's gone back to what it was before that launch, and then maybe a little bit safer. Just because when you launch into a new city who's not used to hearing that, like Sydney are so used to hearing us now, they've grown up with us practically. And so Sydney have this acceptance of whatever we do, it's fine. They don't care. They're like, oh yeah, that's just them. They're so used to it. But launching into a new city that's not, and Melbourne is quite conservative with their radio shows there. And so it was just very jarring to hear that on morning radio when they're not used to it. So I think it's been pulled back a little bit just to kind of soften it.
We've got about 10 minutes left. If anyone in the audience wants to ask Jackie a question, just put your hand up and we'll come to you fairly soon, I think. Have we got a roving microphone out there? Maybe not. You might have to shout. But if you do want to ask a question, it's really difficult for us to see, by the way, because of the lights. Maybe we might get a bit of a scoop here. When do you launch into the next city? And would the next city be Brisbane?
I couldn't say because I actually don't have that information. I would say it's most likely going to be if it were anywhere. I would predict Brisbane, but I promise you, I don't have that information.
Right. Okay. So we're not going to get a scoop.
If I had one, I'd give it to you. Right. I genuinely don't. I promise.
Let's talk about the latest contract. The latest contract is for 10 years. And it's $10 million, Australian dollars, each.
Yes.
Every year for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Who the hell knows what radio's going to be like in 10 years?
I know.
Who knows what it's going to be like in 3 years?
I know. I agree. Although I will say this with radio. I think that there's something about breakfast radio where you've got that audience, and in Sydney and Australia, everyone's driving pretty much. Like, I mean, yes, we catch public transport, but it is, a city where people like to drive to work, and they're stuck in traffic. And you've got that captive audience. Yes, they can listen to playlists on Spotify or Apple or wherever they get it, and iHeart, but it just they want company, and they want to be entertained in a way that they may not get. And it's something, yes, they can listen to podcasts, but there's something about live radio. They know that it's happening in the moment. If something's breaking, they'll hear about it. And I do think that there is still a lot of life left in radio. I genuinely believe that. But I think it's now just, it's the content. That content has to be something they don't get elsewhere. And if you don't have that kind of show, I think, yes, it can be in trouble. But I don't know. I think it's still got a fair bit of life left in it.
The thing is, I think the show has to go national for the numbers to work. what they're paying you guys.
Yeah, I don't know.
So when will they do that? You don't have any idea when they'll do that?
I genuinely don't, no.
But presumably Kyle's going to get a bit irritated if they don't start moving within a certain amount of time.
I don't know, actually. I you know, with Melbourne, he was really pushing that and really wanted it. But I haven't really heard him say too much else about, you know, he's not banging the drum about being national at the moment. He may do in a year or two, but not for now.
Yeah, he'll get a bee in his bonnet at
He
some
will,
point.
yeah. Yeah.
Does anyone want to ask a question? If you do, you'll have to stand up and shout.
Yeah, he's got
we
a
have a
microphone.
microphone right
Oh,
now.
you got a
Hey.
So, hi, Jackie. My name is Andrei from Slovakia, Bauer Media. So, I have 3 very quick questions. The first is, how big is your morning show crew? So, how many members? And the second one is, how your everyday preparation for broadcast looks like? And the third one, how often Kyle pisses you off?
Did you get any of
I
that?
didn't. I think he asked how much do I pay for my mortgage. I'm pretty sure I didn't get that right. Does that, Gemma? Did you get it? Sorry, I'll just.
All right, so
sorry.
the first is, how big?
It's so echoey up there.
I
You can.
understand.
It's literally reverberant. Yep. Yep. Okay. Oh, does Kyle ever pick me up from work? No, he doesn't. Kyle doesn't pick me up from work. We drive in separately. We don't really live near each other these days anyway. How much prep do we put in? Actually, we don't really. What we'll do is we arrive 15 minutes before the show and we'll go through some of the headlines and some of the funny stuff that we want to bring up in the opener, because the opener of our show runs for like 20 to 30 minutes before we even play a song. Like we talk for 30 minutes pretty much straight. And we go through kind of all the sense of the day stuff. So we do that, but after the show, we prep for the next day in terms of where we want to place things, what kind of segments we want to do. And then the rest we like to do on the fly, just because Kyle and I, our style is not to over-prep, to be honest. If there's something we don't know about, there's probably thousands of people listening that don't know either, and sometimes it's good to have it explained to them and us. So that's just our style, which is convenient. And then what was the other? Oh, how big's our production staff? I reckon we have, with producers, I think it's about 8 producers, and then we have sound production guys, and yeah, there's probably like in total with the digital team about 12 producers. Yeah,
Don't forget the bleep
almost-
woman.
the what?
The bleep woman.
Yeah, that's true. The sensor. There's 2 sensors.
2 cents.
Yeah, there's 2 sensors always on the desk.
Anyone else
crazy.
got another question? If you do, can you stand up, please? And speak very slowly. Anyone? Any more for any more? There you go.
Hey, good morning. I'm Elena. I'm from Mix FM Radio in Cyprus. Not the same mix as you mentioned before. I wanted to ask you, what's the secret to staying relevant in an ever-changing world and everything, the reality we're facing these days? What's the key to your success, if you can share it?
Staying relevant. I think we've naturally evolved and had these sort of phases where I think there's always an interest there with Kyle and I, what is happening in our personal life, and oddly we do have quite a bit of interest there because there always seems to be something happening. And, you know, they've watched us evolve and grow. So Kyle used to be the crazy party guy, you know, he was out in the cross and he was hanging out with, well, how do you describe John Ibrahim? I'm not sure. But underworld characters, right? And so there was this real interest in Kyle because he was really out there on that party scene, And then I was like kind of like the mum as staying at home with a child, and so our lives were so different. And then everything changed. He got married and he became the domesticated one, and then I was single and I was out and doing my thing. And there was always this fascination for some reason with the press, but I think on air sharing all of that stuff and never really holding back, I think is what keeps the interest there with the audience. And I think we've been lucky that we've had those kind of, that roller coaster ride in our life. It's never been just ordinary, there's always something going on. And I think for us it's important we stay current with what's going on and what's popular, and to some degree that is important. But I think the most important thing is just always being real as we can, and sharing that with the audience. And for some reason they have stayed there and they've kept interested. Thank you.
Jackie and Gemma do a great podcast, and I strongly recommend that you have a listen to that. It's called Besties. And on that podcast, though, you did say that you would walk away from the show and the 10-year contract if things weren't right.
Yes. Yes, I would. I do. I think, the older you get, you want to, it's important that you're staying true to yourself and that you enjoy what you do and it feels authentic. And the minute it doesn't, I don't ever want to feel bound by this contract where I'm driven by money. I've never been driven by money in my career. And I always want to stay true to that. So if it doesn't feel right at any stage, I would be prepared to walk away from that.
Well, I don't use the word genius very often. And I just thought I'd mention that, by the way. No, seriously, I really think in the world of music radio, Kyle and Jackie are geniuses. And I fully expect you to fulfill the 10 years.
Yeah.
And go national as well.
Well,
fairly soon.
I'll keep you posted.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Jackie O.
Thank you.